So the information that I'm going to be sharing today is definitely a lot of information. I'm gonna tell you that right now. And there's going to be, again, just a really brief overview of just creative ways to think about how to raise funds for your projects, for your ideas, for, anything that's going to help evolve and grow your own business or your organizations. So this is definitely coming from my own personal lessons learned as well as I navigate this space. And I'm just going to talk a lot, write down questions, and yeah, we'll save them down for the end of this presentation. But I understand also that on this call, we have so many different types of businesses, so many different levels of understanding and business growth levels. Like, I'm just a startup, or I've been established for many years, right? Or I'm a product-based business, or I'm a service-based business, or I'm a nonprofit. So I understand that. So I'm trying to give as many examples as I can. But yeah, always here to, flesh through ideas and answer questions here at the end. So again, we're here for planting seeds of success. So cultivating funds for your business, idea, or project. And just you've heard the bio, all of the good things. Again, I'm Mojave Tewan Hopi, raised on the Fort Mojave Indian tribe. My clans from my Mojave side, I'm Miot Shisun clan. From my Tewa Hopi side, I'm Tobacco clan. And so see if I have any new cousins by the end of this call, huh? So again, good to be here. Good to see you all. So the agenda for today is just, again, I'm trying to come from a place of like actionable things that we could start doing right now, or just trying to pose some questions that might challenge your thinking and just like, oh, I don't know that yet. Or I think I know what it is, but let me articulate it, right? So this is kind of the run through of topics that we'll be discussing. The first one is being in a good position to seek funding. So how can you start now to be in a position to identify funding opportunities? How can I align the funding to wherever I'm at right now? So we'll talk through that. And then I'll just give you some ways, various ways to fund a project or an idea, and give you some examples of what we personally have done in our own experience. Okay. A lot of information. I'm probably going to talk fast. So here we go. So the first one is topic we're talking about is how to be in a good position to seek funding. And always the fundamentals, right? Business fundamentals is the first thing that you guys could start gathering or collecting, or start trying to get these maybe like in a file and organize these, right? I always used to say, like, why am I writing this business plan? I'm not gonna, there's a lot of things that I need to create, and you probably don't know, like, when am I going to use this business plan? I would start, if you don't have it right now, that your business plan is always going to be a living document, right? It's going to grow and breathe with you as long as through the growth of your business. So the first thing that you should be looking at is, one, do I have a business plan? Two, does it currently fit to where I want to be now? And what are the things that I should look at to grow? So business plan is a really good document to have on hand, because it will help you write your grant, or help you write your proposal, or whatever those things are. So business plan is the first thing to have. The next one, as far as business foundation, is making sure that you have your business structure in place. Many funding opportunities do require certain types of businesses that are eligible for certain types of funding. So again, just making sure that you have all those documents somewhere in a folder ready to access. Are you an LLC? Do you have your articles of incorporation? Are you a nonprofit organization? Are you not even structured yet, which is totally fine too, right? What type of business structure are you? And actually, this is probably one of the biggest questions that we get, asked about, is like, should I be an LLC or should it be a nonprofit, right? And I hope that the business plan will help you try to articulate that. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. After that, making sure that you are registered in the places that you're serving and the communities that you're serving, both on reservation and within the municipalities and the state. So, and then also making sure you have the licenses that are attached. So those are specifically for those that are more in the professional settings. So making sure you have the appropriate license. And then registration as well, of just making sure you have if you are an LLC, that you have your EIN number. If you have a bank account, right? Making sure you're registered in your business bank account. So all of those first three things: business plan, business structure, registration, and license. Just have those somewhere, right? Because they are going to be asked. They will be questions that funders or people that you're trying to seek funding for are going to want to make sure that you have it. One thing that I forgot to mention on this piece, I should have put slash insurance. So business license slash insurance is also, again, those fundamental things, foundational things that as a business to operate that, you will be asked for. So this is number one thing. The last question on there, this is probably something that I personally struggled with. Was really trying to articulate what impact do I want my business, my organization, or my idea to have. So what is the broader impact of that? And what I mean by that is that you heard me say three things. I am workforce development, economic development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those were the areas that I could not articulate. I'm like, I'm just gonna start a business and I want to serve Native communities and I want to, help Native students. And they're like, that's awesome. I think that's great. But what change are you trying to make? Where at are you trying to make? And it took me a minute to articulate that, but that part is very important because that's where you're going to start seeking your funding from. That's where you're going to start seeking your relationships and your partnerships at. So the more that you could identify where you're trying to make change at and where you want to see impact is, will be helpful. So I have a whole process on that. And I'll kind of walk it through. I'm trying not to get too technical here, but again, I'm just trying to ask you some questions. You guys also heard, just our background and the work that we do, but I am a grant writer by trade. And so this is also me kind of giving tips because I've seen so many different types of funding opportunities from all different levels. And these were, again, just questions that I was like, oh, shoot, I don't know. Let me think about that, right? So I'm going to take a second and talk about broader impacts quickly. So what is the broader impact of your business? So especially if you are seeking funding opportunities that are community oriented or specific to a population that's underserved, those types of things. These are some examples of broader impact. Workforce development or economic development in my space is like we are trying to increase jobs. We want more jobs. That's like the broader impact we're going to make. Or I want to see more small businesses and entrepreneurs be successful. So that means I'm going to have more economic growth, right? We're going to have more businesses and small businesses and entrepreneurs in our environment. And then the last one is social impact. Like I'm trying to make a social impact. That usually means I'm trying to improve the conditions within a community. I'm trying to address like an environmental concern, or again, trying to serve Indigenous youth, or whatever identified population you're trying to serve. These are just some examples, and this is me just using my own example of my business, of that I'm just trying to create more opportunity, economic opportunity for Indigenous people. And these are potential areas of impact I want to make. So again, I use a tool, and this is specifically in the areas of grants, but I actually use it for everything. So when I do coaching, when I do business plan development, I ask all of the questions that come from what they call a logic model. And I do have a template and examples of that, but you could quickly Google it. And there's a lot of things that will allow for you to create your own template that makes sense to you. But I just want to go, I'm not going to get technical, but I just want to show you the questions, okay? In a logic model, it's basically saying, What resources do you have? What service, product, or program or event are you trying to host or offer? And then what are the goals you have? So it's just making sure that it's logical. Like if I do this thing, this is the impact it will make. Why I think a logic model is so important, because if you're anything like me, I say yes to everything because I want to help everyone. So I'm like, yeah, I'll do that activity. Yeah, I'll do that event. Yeah, I'll do this thing. But it's not making any impact in the areas of why I created my business in the first place, right? Or why I created, this product in the first place. I just wanted to help. And I just wanted to, use my skill set. So this also just gives you personal accountability for yourself to make sure that your cup is full before you could, help others type of. And so it's also the same questions you might get asked in a funding proposal. So some of the questions will be like, what are some of the main things that your project or business will do? What resources do you have to support this? What of your products of services that will be created, what type of impact will that make? Short term, long term, right? And of these things, what industry, what environment, what area are you trying to make an impact in? So logic models are cool. They kind of challenge you in like different ways. Like, I never thought about that. I don't know. But I help facilitate this process with a lot of people, and I use it for many things to ask questions in. So, these are just a sample of examples of questions that, you could answer yourself. Everybody, and I highlighted this for a reason in red, everybody knows what they want to do. Like I know what product I'm going to make. I know what service I want to offer. I know what event I want to host. I know what program I want to make, right? Everyone kind of knows that part. It's these other parts that kind of get, a little tougher. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to think beyond a year, let alone, 5 years down the road. So I use a logic model to kind of facilitate that process of, what does business growth look like or what does organizational growth look like? And so this is a logic model. Again, could Google it. I do have many examples of logic models if anybody wants it. So that is what were we talking about? Broader impact. The third thing that will help you be in the position, right? So once you figured out your business fundamentals, you've identified what impact you want to make. The third thing is like, what's a way that I could just try this out in a small scale way before I make a big investment, before I seek larger amounts of fundings, before I apply for this grant, right? I highly recommend trying your idea, your product, or your service on a small market level or a small scale level. This will allow for you the term they call us proof of concept, right? That's the term. I'm going to have a proof of concept that demonstrates that my product, my service, my event, my program or idea works for the intended reason why I said I would create it, right? So this is also gives you very important information about what you're offering too, because when you first offer it, you're going to learn a lot. Like, was this product really what I thought I said it was going to do? Was this event what I really thought it was going to do? Right. And then it allows for you to adjust and adapt. It just fine tunes it. Right. So, what are some things to know that, the proof of concept is working or can work? You could look at your sales and your customer commitments. You could look at positive customer feedback. You could see that there are more people that are interested that want to partner with your program, event, or service. So for startups, let's see. Yeah, so I just put here, just making sure that you're tracking those steps to develop your idea, right, in this process. So then you could fine tune it. So again, proof of concept, try to scale that, your idea, and then it will be helpful when you're applying for more funding. The last one here is also by knowing that your product is successful and you've tried it out, make sure that you're aligning the funding needs to wherever you are in your growth. So, what are ways that you need to scale or grow efficiently? Start articulating and identifying those ways. Like, do I need to hire a new employee? Do I need to have more money to make product quicker and more efficiently? Do I need to go into a new market? For us, we started out with youth programming, so high school students, and then we're like, wow, we actually are doing a great job. Let's go on to first year, second year college students, right? We see a need there. Like students still need more support when they go into college, right? So we started to identify a new market. We're like, okay, now we're going to serve college students. And so again, just trying to articulate what growth looks like for you. And then the last part is, yeah, looking at does my business need marketing support now as I go into a new audience? So again, articulate and align your business growth to your funding needs. So if you could identify those things, it will also help when you're applying for funding, because then you could tell them this is what I need and this is why I need it. And this is all of the information and data that I know to prove and show that it's needed, right? Okay, a lot of information. And then the last one, we cannot get away from financials. This is absolutely the bare minimum of any funding opportunity that you seek for is going to ask for one of these things. Tax returns, profit and loss statement, balance sheets, cash flow statements. The very awesome thing about that, like I had no idea about any of these things. Mind you, when I first started doing this, I'm like, I don't know how to read this. I don't know how to track this. I'm not even tracking it. Like what software do I need to get? But this is at the minimum, like if you apply for any funding, they're going to ask for one of these things. So if you don't have that, I would start working on that now. If you do need support in this, we have a very awesome organization that has hosting this event that could help you, Native Women Lead. But we have so many other partners as well that we could refer anybody. I'm from Arizona, so again, very familiar with the Arizona entrepreneurial system that could also help with these things. So at the minimum, these would be things that funding opportunities will look for. Okay. Okay, and then the last one, I have many examples of this. I'm actually going to show you a resource, but start identifying a clear use of funds, right? If I had $10,000, what would I spend that $10,000 on, and what would a budget look like for that? So is it staff? Is it supplies? Start putting amounts to that, and breakdown of how you calculated that number. So I also help facilitate some of these things, but really what it means when you're applying for any type of funding, they're going to say, well, how are you spending our money, right? What are you using our funds for? They're also going to look at if you're asking for a certain line item, is that a quote unquote allowable cost for within a grant, So anyway, just start identifying how you would spend X amount of money. So if it's 10,000, if it's 100,000, just start dreaming and calculating what those things look like. So clear use of funds, sample budgets. There's an organization that I work for. It's called Local First Arizona. They have a whole department that's dedicated to assisting with budgets, assisting with grants, and helping find grants. And so they have a really awesome online portal. And so I'll show that to you guys at the end of this. And they also have samples of budgets that you could use, like templates. Again, quick Google search, you could type grant budget template And I'm telling you guys to Google things, but also don't pay for them. So if you're getting prompted to pay, don't pay for them. Okay. We there's free stuff out there, and I'll send you guys a list of organizations that could support doing that. So all of those things I just mentioned are things that you could work on now to be prepared to apply for funding. Okay, so that's how you could be in a good position to apply for funding. What you could work on right now is something super small scale, right? Is like, what does my executive summary look like? If I were to do like a one paragraph of what my company, my organization, my idea is, what would a summary look like? You could do that now. Then I would start crafting a pitch deck. This would be very good practice for you, even though you're not pitching, right? It'd be very good practice to start being able to speak and talk about your business in certain spaces, or, you're talking to a friend. You'd be surprised of just, if you're traveling and you're sitting at a restaurant waiting for your flight, or, you're in a line, you never know who you're talking to. And if you could pitch your idea, your business, or your organization in 3 minutes or less, just naturally, like it, I'll tell you, that's where I got probably most of my partnerships were waiting in a line or waiting at an airport. But the pitch deck helps with that. So I would create a pitch deck. I would practice this part, is financial statements and creating a budget. So I would just try it out, and start that now, and then identify growth areas. So if I were to say, this is the end of our presentation, these would be my 4 action items for you guys to do, is these things. So that's how you could be ready to apply for funding. All right, we doing okay? That was a lot of information. All right, now we're gonna go into ways to fund your idea. Okay, so this next one, ways to fund your business. These, I'm going to go by just so many different types. So the first ways to fund a business are obviously your own personal investment. Many people have done that, right? I've heard many stories of like, I had $1,500 in my bank account, and I budgeted it out for what I needed for the year. So there has been a lot of personal savings for folks that have started ways to fund their business. I personally was that too. I'm like, I'm going to save this much money, and this is what I'm going to do for my first 3 months, right? There are some initiatives around crowdfunding, right? So there's a lot of platforms now that allow for this, with Kickstarter or GoFundMe, to be an initial source of funding. These things here, I would recommend to do this if you're just going to pilot your idea and you have the means to do it, right? The challenge with some of these things, right, is there are a lot of other resources to tap into to give you some startup funds, and I'll name some of those too, where you're not using your own personal savings. So just know that there's a lot of opportunity out there for just like $500 or $1,000. There's a lot of those type of smaller grants out there. Crowdfunding attaches a percentage. So even if you did set a goal, like I'm going to raise $1,000, that platform's going to take a percentage of that. So pros and cons of both of those things, right? So this is the initial way, ways to fund your business. Another way to fund your business is through grants and competitions. So there are things like private grants. So private grants are usually grants that come from corporations or from foundations. There are many, many of private grants. The awesome thing about private grants is that they're usually a little more flexibility on how you spend your money, right? There is a little more flexibility on like reporting, like usually you probably do like an end of year, like one report, or maybe they just want you to record a video. Um, Private grants have really cool, that's I think the plus of it all. The con of private grants is that they are extremely competitive. Like it's very hard to win a private grant. Um, and if it's really probably going to take you a few times, a lot of times to apply for a grant to win it. Um, and I would actually say that for any grant, private or public. So that's a private grant. Usually again comes from different foundations or different corporations and whatnot. But another way is public grants. So public grants are any type of grant that comes from the federal government, from the state government, from a municipality, or from your local area. They're usually attached to those types of funding. So that's what a public grant is. These are also very hard and also very competitive to get, but it's a technical skill to write a grant. I have a fellow grant writer here, and if I could find a fellow grant writer where we could kind of lean into some of the frustrations about what it means to write grants for a federal, state, or local, it's a skill set. So I see Claire on here, and I'm just kind of like nodding to her because it is pretty tough to write a grant. But the cool thing about federal grant or public grants is that they're pretty large amount of money, for a year, sometimes multi-year funding. So, and then both grants you don't pay back. So that's cool, right? But I'll show you the website of just showing different ways to apply for public grants. Usually with public grants, you do have a lot of reporting. You do have restrictions on what you can and cannot spend those funds on. Yeah, it's pretty stringent. And those ones also require certain status, right? So there's only like you have to be a nonprofit, or you have to be a public, institution like an education institution, or there's certain requirements of who and who can't, like a tribal nation, or you know what's the other one? An NGO, right? So there's usually restrictions to that one of who can apply and who can't apply. So awesome thing about both of these grants is once you start identifying the area that you want to make an impact in, and you start showing up, like grants, the grant manager of that grant, they do everything possible to answer any questions. They'll have like info sessions. They'll have question and answers at the end of those info sessions. They'll walk you through what the announcement looks like and who's eligible and who's not eligible, and all of those different things. So once you start seeing certain places where grants are coming from, and you're just showing up and asking questions, they'll answer. Then you start forming relationships with that program manager, and then they know who you are, right? So I think that's pretty cool about both of the grants, is that they are really trying to make sure that everyone has access to applying and building the capacity around it. So those are grants. And then the other thing is competitions and pitches. So competitions and pitches are usually coming from private funding sources or corporations that want to give back to a certain population, right? So it could be like women grants, or Indigenous grants, or Indigenous funds. So, but these are usually smaller amounts. It could be probably 25,000. I saw 50,000 before, but 25,000 and lower. And it's a competition. So basically, you are pitching your idea in front of a panel, and then you could win. Like it's usually a competition. I try to do as many competition as I can because it's practice. It's very scary, but It's practice and you need to do it. I know Native Women Lead and the Future is Indigenous Women and Powwow Pitch are all pitches that serve specifically Indigenous businesses and entrepreneurs, and they're really good practice. So again, those 3-minute and shorter competitions. So grants and competitions is one way. Another way to fund your idea is loans. It's usually the one I recommend very, very last, if at all. But there are, I would only recommend loans if you have established a market, you have established, like, I would say more for folks that have an established idea or an audience. The idea is never for anyone to go into debt, right? So there are a lot of different small business loans. I am such a fan of the loan funds that have come out of Native Women Lead and some of their partners, like the Futures Indigenous Women, Roan Horse Consulting, New Mexico Community Capital, because they create a fund that is based in our value systems, right? So it's called relational based lending. That's the term. It challenges the traditional loans, which is the ones that come from banks or credit unions, online lenders, or other types of business loans, like from credit card companies, those types of things. It challenges it because they're not asking for credit. They're not asking for collateral. How much money can you put up to get this loan? Really, it's based on your character and your ability to pay back the loan. Like we're gonna base our decision on your relationship to the community, your relationship and your character to pay back. And if you couldn't, then what would you do? So it really kind of leans into the communal sense and a relational lens of lending, but they also support your cultural nuances that happen when you have a business or you start a business. So big fan of Native Women Lead Funds, and I'm a recipient of one of their funds too. So that's Native Women Lead Funds. There are current funds that I'm a part of right now that's also part from another partner that's called Rooted Relative Fund. It's a relational based lending fund. I work with Startup Tucson in Arizona. I know Local First Arizona has this fund, and then New Mexico Community Capital has this fund if you're in Albuquerque. But either way, I think any of the partners I just mentioned, if you're not in the state, would still entertain any type of questions you have about it, right? Of like, I'm curious, what is this about, right? So just as long as you're an Indigenous business, then and been in business for I don't know, I think it's like 2 or 3 years. But the cool thing about these one is that the interest rate is pretty low, so that's always a plus thing. And so this is small business loans. So again, relational based lending is the top two. Traditional loans are anything that's based in the 5 C's. There are now like loans that you could get from if you have a product, like from Square, or those types of loans like Pay Me. What's the one where you could pay back the loan? So anyway, Square is the one that I know that has it. So those are different types of loans. Again, the con with the traditional loans, it is based in like the 5 C's. It also has typically large interest rates with that. So just things to consider. I don't recommend loans often. If you are considering a loan, I strongly suggest that you meet with a coach or an accountant or anyone before you decide to take a loan. And then the last thing is government loans. There are government loans. These are more specifically to folks that come from the Small Business Administration, the USDA, the Economic Development are all federal entities, but they also have loans for small business. And they're usually larger amounts over several years. So Small business loans is a way to. And then this is fundraising strategies. I'm just going to briefly say like what these different things are, but it's terminology from fundraisers, right? The development side. So there's donations, major gifts, events, sponsorships, and corporate partnerships. Those are terminologies that folks use, and I personally use some of these strategies as well as as a social enterprise, as a for-profit business. But this strategy is usually taken for nonprofits. So nonprofits invest a lot of resources, both time and staff, and to create these different types of models to help fund some of their programs and events. So donations is like a portal, like those would be the online buttons, click to donate type of campaigns. Major gifts is literally the terminology for fundraising. It's called major gifts, but this is a very relationship heavy approach where you are going out to meet with those private foundations. You are hosting and going into, it's very meeting heavy, but you go and meet with folks that have a special interest of investing or giving back their whatever they've made, their funds, right? Individuals or foundations. Events, so this could be auctions, galas, concerts, races, dinners, and other ways to raise money specifically through events. There's sponsorships. There's two kinds of sponsorships that I'll mention here, but sponsorships are usually created source of funding to exchange for visibility or recognition. So usually people will sponsor your event, your program, because they want to, their business or the logo to be associated either with your event, with your network, or with your community. So that's what it means about exchanging for visibility or recognition. There are also some partners that will do in-kind sponsorship. So in-kind is basically they're giving you either a product or a person, or they're leveraging something that they already have existing to give to your event. So usually it's space. Like I've had many people donate space and not charge me for using their space. Sometimes it's product. Like people have given me like computers, right? Here are some computers you could get to your clients, and usually it's because they want that product, which is their product, to be in your community, right? Visibility, still visibility. And then corporate partnerships are partners with businesses that align with your organizational mission. So corporate partnerships, again, is just a form of marketing for that company. So they'll usually sponsor, programs, events, and whatnot from an allocated budget, usually marketing, so they could again, visibility or awareness within your community or your event. So again, these are all fundraising strategies. I'm not a nonprofit, but these usually come from a nonprofit. I've done some of these. So those are so many different ways to raise funds, and I'll just give you some examples. Okay, so the last thing I will say, you heard me say this many times, I'm a social enterprise, I'm a for-profit business. Any grant that I get, any money that comes in as a business is considered income, taxable income. So I prefer to do try to find a nonprofit partner, especially if I'm doing events or programs or projects. And so what that is called a fiscal sponsor. I am a for-profit and I'm wanting to partner with a nonprofit so they could be my fiscal sponsor. That fiscal sponsor is a way to partner with that nonprofit organization so they could give anyone that has given us money a tax exempt status. Like I'll give you money and in return, they get a tax write-off, but they're going through our fiscal agent to do that. This also is a way for any funding or money that comes in. It's operated under that nonprofit's fiscal arm. So they're in charge of doing all of the finance, right? Like They're going to take the money. They're going to account for it. They're going to expense it. They're going to assume the responsibility fiscally. And now I don't have to. More often than not with fiscal sponsorships, there is a fee that's associated with it. And it ranges. I mean, because essentially you're using their resources to support your initiative. Fiscal sponsors, I currently have one, but you cannot just ask anybody to be your fiscal sponsor. Like, not very many nonprofits are going to be like, you just met them yesterday or a month ago, and you're going to come in and say, will you be my fiscal sponsor? It's very rare, right? Your fiscal sponsor also has to align to the work that you're doing. So whatever the nonprofit that you're utilizing for a fiscal sponsorship, it has to be in alignment. Also with fiscal sponsorships, again, there's a fee that's associated with it. So if I get $10,000 in sponsorships or grants, there's going to be a certain fee that's going to be taken to allow for us to use them as a fiscal sponsor. This part here is just a way that, businesses, for-profit businesses could also apply for grants, because oftentimes they're saying like you have to be a nonprofit. So I have to go through my fiscal sponsor in order to apply for that grant. So again, I can answer questions on what this looks like, but all of that's pretty much it. Those are ways that you could fund a project. Here are some examples of how we've done it. As you heard, we did co-found a location called Cahokia in downtown Phoenix. It was a community space. This is what it looks like inside on the right. We made a personal investment. We saved, like $5,000. Basically, each of us, I had myself and a co-owner, and said, we're going to save this much money. This is our financial model. This is how we know it's going to work, right? All of those steps that I told you at the beginning. But we had to calculate how much money we needed to make and how much money we needed to have in the savings account in order for us to operate. So that's what we calculated. We need this much money to do that, right? So we made a personal investment in the space. We also at the same time got an in-kind sponsorship through a grant. So this was through the city. So we were able to partner with the city of Phoenix. We applied for a grant and they gave us a below market rate for rent. And it was through a tax credit, all these different things. So anyway, that was a model for us to be successful because we formed a partnership with the city, we applied for a grant, and then we got a deduction on the rent. This is in downtown Phoenix. Rent could be ridiculously high, but we were able to, again, go through the city to get a lower rate. And that's the only way we were able to be successful. Event sponsorships. So we created an event called Matriarch Mixers. Matriarch Mixers we host every month. We can convene Indigenous businesses and entrepreneurs and professionals in Phoenix. And when we do this work, we have asked for sponsorships to support this networking event. And the sponsorships we ask for are from organizations and corporate entities that could support small business. So we've received, for example, we got an event sponsorship from Square. Square does a lot of online platforms with like websites, with the, everyone knows Square, like the purchasing system, right? They now have an accounting system too, marketing system. So they sponsored our event because it was for visibility. So that's an example of event sponsorship. This space down here is a location called the Churchill in downtown Phoenix. They actually did a proof of concept. They found out a financial model that was great and they applied for SBA loan. So the SBA loan is a small business administration loan to allow for them to buy property and land. And so it was a pretty chunk of money and then they were able to buy the property and that was how they started their business. And then the last one is a sponsorship event. I sit on the board for State 48 Foundation. State 48 Foundation is an entrepreneurship nonprofit here in Arizona. It's the nonprofit arm of a t-shirt company that's located here. But they host events to fundraise for them. So they curated a whole entire event called Poker Night and they established partnerships with the surrounding areas to do raffle prizes and, do different silent auctions and those types of things. And so this is an example of a fundraising strategy that they did through events. So those are just some examples. My lessons learned, and then this is it, I'm done. My lessons learned for all of the things that we've done up until this point. The best thing that you can do for anything that you are offering is collecting data. Know your numbers. Data tells stories. So if you're hosting an event, the biggest question that I always ask for our mixers, and some of you have come to our mixers, right? Is like, how many, like, what tribe are you from? Where are you coming from? Like, where does your business operate? Where are you traveling from? And that's pretty much it. Then I just track like how many attendees we have every year. So I could just spitball numbers now at this time. We serve 744 attendees. These are how many tribes that came to our tribal nations that were represented. This is how many that were from Phoenix. This is how many that were from, New Mexico, right? So data is important. It tells a story, and it's mostly going to show your proof of concept to anybody that's investing in you. So that's one lesson learned. Try to figure out how to track data. Also could help with finding out numbers. Data you could also get lost in it too. So don't do too much. Just do whatever you need to tell a story. The next thing is relationships. So relationships are the core of any type of funding strategy I mentioned. As a grants person, I had to form relationships with every funder. So they know me, so they know my name. I have meetings with them. I attend their events. I invite them to our events. Like, I really want to show presence in our relationships. This also shows an example to whoever I'm partnering with, is that we show up for each other. We're a very relational organization. So we are not a transactional organization. So that's something very important to know, because if you're going to partner with organizations that are not Indigenous or not Indigenous led, more often than not, it's going to be a transaction, right? So there are some organizations that are non-Indigenous that don't function like that. But the point is that you just being aware and recognizing that, relationships are very important, that you're showing up and being in the spaces and places that those funders are at, or those companies are at, or those organizations are at, and vice versa. Invite them to whatever you're doing. So relationships are important. This is the one I say all the time. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I have to tell myself that every day. We might have really great events or really great ideas, but we have to be very intentional with, like, okay, it's not just money that this is going to cost. How much time, how much energy, how much relationships will I have to manage, how many resources I'm going to have. It's really trying to be really intentional with what you're trying to launch, right? And so, is there a way that I could chunk it, which is my next thing? Is there a way that I could chunk this idea and do it small scale first? Or how can I do like whatever I'm trying to accomplish in quarters? I do this all the time. Like, I'm going to say, I'm going to do this thing within this quarter or next quarter. Anyway, chunk your ideas and scale it. Yeah, and then my last lesson learned is, I already said it, is participate in the programs and the spaces that you want to be known. So if I'm a small business and an economic development person, I'm going to show up to all the small business and economic things. If I'm in education, I'm going to go to a lot of the education events. If I'm in STEM, I'm going to go there. If I'm in environmental, I'm going to go there, right? So just showing up and participating in the spaces, because the strongest form of awareness for yourself is word of mouth. So the more they know about you, the more they know about your business or idea, the more that they'll start uplifting you in their spaces too. Cool. That's all I got. That's a lot of information. This is me. I said a lot. I know it's not as detailed as we want it to be, but I'm just trying to get as much information as I can out. This is my virtual business card. Um, it's my Popple. You could scan it. It has our LinkedIn, it has our email, it has our Instagram. We always post funding opportunities. We always post pitch competitions. We always post our events. So make sure you follow us so we could share those with you. We would love to see you and meet you and share space. That's all I got. Okay, Jen, your turn.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Melody, that was amazing. Totally comprehensive. I'm like, yes, all of it. So, just to recap all, one thing that we can all do starting now is getting our executive summary, getting our pitch deck, getting our financial statements, and identify our growth areas. So start collecting data and start forming relationships all. Be sure to follow Melody. Like she said, she posts a lot of resources, pitch competitions, events, and things that are coming up. Be sure to do that. Native Women Lead is excited to be able to offer some other resources of capital products later on this year. So be sure to follow us. And Claire just mentioned that they also have resources with New Mexico Community Capital. And if you're interested in fiscal sponsorship or have questions about it, so be sure to reach out to Claire. And before we close, I just wanted to open it up to everyone to please share some messages of gratitude and just appreciation. Thank you so much, Melody, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your expertise, all this information. We appreciate it so much.
I'm also going to put a chat. I forgot to share the resource, but Local First Arizona has a full list of grants that you don't have to search for. They're there.
Yes, awesome. So attend the Matriarch Mixer. My favorite event I was able to attend last November. They're amazing. So please start forming relationships and get out there and network. And this is a great event to do that at. So thank you so much to Melody and her team for continuing to host amazing opportunities and events like this for all of us to gather at and continue to build this ecosystem together. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all have a good night. Appreciate your time this evening. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event. So follow us for more information. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, Melody.